At the beginning of every food chain is a primary producer. They're at the beginning of the food chain because they make their own food using a process called photosynthesis. This process is really a long series of chemical reactions, but we won't get too much into the details. But essentially, during the process, plants use energy from the sun, along with carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, and water they take in through their roots to make their own food. At the end of the process, the plant has produced a sugar called glucose and oxygen, which it releases into the atmosphere. So this diver is wrong. You could say that oxygen grows on trees, but we'll see how oxygen really isn't created by the plants. Like all chemical reactions, the process of photosynthesis can be summed up using a chemical equation. The left side of the chemical equation shows what we start with. CO2 is the chemical symbol for carbon dioxide, and H2O is the symbol for water. Energy from the sun is also needed for photosynthesis, but chemical reactions just throw the atoms involved, and since energy is in an atom, it's not usually written in the chemical equation, even though it's a really important part of the process. Carbon dioxide comes from the atmosphere, and water is taken up through the plant's roots. The arrow means yields, and represents the chemical reaction itself. During a chemical reaction, atoms get arranged into new substances, but no new atoms are created or destroyed. So the carbon atom in carbon dioxide is incorporated into the glucose molecule. The oxygen in carbon dioxide is also incorporated into the sugar molecule, along with hydrogen from the original water molecule. When you eat plants, you eat the sugar which got its carbon from carbon dioxide. You then break down the sugar in your body and produce carbon dioxide as a waste product. So you can see how the carbon has been cycled between you, the plant, and the atmosphere. It's changed forms, moving from carbon dioxide to sugar, and then back to carbon dioxide again, but we didn't create any carbon. The plant makes sugar for 3 reasons. The first is that the plant can break the sugar down to use as energy. Secondly, the plant could store the sugar to use as energy later, and the stored form of sugar is called starch. When you eat a potato, you're eating the part of the plant where it has a lot of stored sugar, it's starch. Finally, the sugar can be used to make cell walls that surround plant cells. Cell walls provide the plants with support. Ultimately, the energy to make food for plants comes from the sun. Light from the sun appears to be white, but it really contains all the colors of the rainbow. So when you look at sunlight through a prism or a raindrop, the light basically slows down and bounces off the surfaces of these objects to reveal each of the colors of light. The colors appear as they do because of the amount of energy they contain. Blue light actually contains more energy than red light does. And plants can only use light with specific amounts of energy. They use red and blue light the most. Leaves of plants are made up of plant cells, and each of the plant cells have organelles, or cell parts that are called chloroplasts. These stacks are green because they contain the pigment chlorophyll. Pigments are substances that absorb particular colors of light. It works the same way in paint pigments. The paint pigment absorbs a specific type of light, which excites electrons that make up the pigment, and so they give off that color of light. Chlorophyll appears green. That's why plants look green too. So the pigment chlorophyll absorbs red and blue and violet light mostly. If you think about what the other colors of the rainbow are left, if you take away red and blue and violet, you're left with green, yellow, and orange. Plants have other pigments that absorb orange light, so take that one away too. And you're left with just yellow and green. These are the colors that are reflected. So whatever color of light is not absorbed gets reflected. That's how colors everywhere work. If you have a blue t-shirt on, it appears blue to you because the pigments in the dye absorb all the colors of the rainbow except for blue. Therefore, that blue light reflects and your t-shirt looks blue. This graph shows what kind of light 2 types of chlorophyll absorb. You can see chlorophyll B absorbs a lot of blue light and red light as well. Chlorophyll A absorbs a lot of purple light and also red light. Neither chlorophyll A nor B absorbs green, yellow, or orange very well. In the fall, the leaves start to change color because the pigments stop working at particular temperatures. So when the pigment that usually absorbs orange light stops working, the leaves appear more orange. According to this graph, what pigment stops working if the leaves appear violet?